You're tuned in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, guiding your gridiron journey, none other than your host, former NFL lineman, Ross Tucker.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It is our critically acclaimed, and I love those of you that have made it a point to check them out, Saturday Sit Down. It's new this year. We no longer do the 2 Fantasy Feast podcasts every week during the season. We added a second even money betting podcast on Thursday. And since we have 2 Greg Cosell's back-to-back Thursday and Friday, we added this Saturday Sit Down. So it's a longer form interview. That's the key here. I will get to my thoughts on that Bears-Eagles Black Friday game a little bit later. But first, we've got Steve Strawbridge. He is the president and CEO of Pop Warner Football. You guys know fully well how seriously may not be the right word, but how much I love and adore the sport of football. So when I was offered the chance to talk to the president and CEO of Pop Warner Football, which is by far the biggest youth football organization, you better believe I jumped at that for the chance to ask him all kinds of questions about what's going on with my favorite sport at the lowest level. Really hope you guys enjoy this one. I think you will. It's Steve Strawbridge from Pop Warner Football. It's Big Show time.
The Big Show.
People have really been enjoying these conversations, and I know I have as well. And today we've got Steve Strawbridge, the CEO of Pop Warner Football, which, I mean, you guys all at this point know me well enough to know how much I adore the sport at every level. So this is right up my alley to talk with Steve. I could talk to Steve for like 2 hours, to be honest with you, about a million different questions. But Steve, really appreciate you coming on, man. Thanks for the time.
Thank you very much, Ross. I'm really excited to have this conversation.
By the way, Steve, tell them your background with the Eagles and the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I spent 12 years at the Eagles, 1996 to 2007. We went from the worst team in football. We drafted Donovan McNabb and went through a whole 4 NFC championships in a row, 1 Super Bowl. We never won it, but it was an incredible experience. We built Lincoln Financial Field, and it was just a great time. And then from there, I went out to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, where I was the COO for 16 years. And to go from working for my hometown team, I never thought I'd get any better than that, to go and to work with the best to ever play the game that we all love. It was just absolutely incredible to work with the Hall of Famers and all the good that everyone does. And then now I'm working, with the youth in the future. So I never thought it would keep getting better, but it really is.
I think almost everybody listening or watching on YouTube, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL, I think most people have heard the name Pop Warner. They know what that Pop Warner means, youth football. But can you kind of give them the background on exactly what it means, like what the Pop Warner company is all about?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, everybody thinks they've played Pop Warner. It's funny, as I was talking about, I talked to our Hall of Famers, and they're all like, "Oh yeah, I played Pop Warner." And then it's just kind of synonymous with youth football, like you said. It's kind of like Kleenex and tissues. So, but yeah, Pop Warner, we're 97 years old. Unbelievable. The largest and the gold standard of youth football. And the keys to Pop Warner really are 4 things. We have structure. We teach the game right. We teach it. We have a very intense coaching qualifications you have to go through and training. So we have the structure. We have the safety, which is obviously extremely important. We took out kickoffs for our youngest groups 10 years ago. We wanted to make sure we were the leading in safety. We have a medical advisory board with 10 doctors on it. A number of them are the key doctors for the NFL. So the only ones that have a true medical advisory board. And then one that a lot of people don't think about is we are Pop Warner Little Scholars. So we have a huge scholastic and all kinds of support that we give and scholarships to the young and the youth, which is really important. And the fourth one is we have a Super Bowl. We have a true Super Bowl. We actually have the rights to use the word Super Bowl and national championship. And you work your way up through your league, through your region, throughout the whole country. And then you work to our Super Bowl, which this year is in Charlotte the first week of December.
So a couple things. One is, how are you guys funded, Steve?
So we are, like I said, we are a nonprofit. We do get support from the NFL and a number of other areas, but we run our own business. We have very great sponsors and partners, very significant deals with Riddell and Wilson, all kinds of sponsors throughout. And then, we have our regional and league fees. But we do get quite a bit of support. But we put everything back into the teaching of the game, teaching of the coaches, teaching it right, and then the scholarships and trying to serve as many people as we can.
What are the age groups?
The age group, so we go 5 to 17. And basically it's basically our key, our kind of the heart of it is really 8 to 14. But we offer it at the youngest levels, and then we go up through depending into early high school. But the focus is basically that middle age area to kind of learning the game, teaching the game. We have no cuts. It's something that's incredibly, it's part of our bylaws, and something, again, we're here to teach the game and develop the game and grow the game.
Yeah, can you talk about that a little bit? Because it is one of the things I feel like that's really cool and separates football from a lot of other sports is that maybe there are some high schools that cut players. I don't know, but I'm not aware, at least in Pennsylvania, of high schools that cut football players. Kind of something cool and different is that like anybody can be part of it if they want to, which is not the case with the basketball team or the baseball team or whatever.
Exactly, and again, it's all about developing the game, and we want people, we believe that, whether you're going to go play in high school or college or middle school or be lucky enough and good enough to play in pro, we just want to make sure we give that opportunity. And we want to make sure we teach it right. And we want to make sure these kids get out of the house, get exercise, learn the game. And again, we don't build super teams. We're there to have everybody has the option and the availability to play, and we have 8 regions throughout the country. So, and we have the same bylaws that go through all those. So we really encourage, and want to grow the sport, grow the game.
So, tell me about the participation numbers, right? It's been a while now that the information about CT has been out, and people have talked about that. I have Chris Nowinski from the Concussion Legacy Foundation come on the show every year, and I'm curious. I see some of the numbers sometimes at the high school level. At your level, what are the participation numbers, and how do they compare over the last few years?
Yeah, no, for sure. And again, I think it all goes back to safety and how we train and the extra effort that we put into our coaches certification, which is through USA Football, one of our partners, again, which just does it right and teaches the game. But basically, the numbers were hit pretty hard with COVID. Kind of came right at the end of a lot of the the head injuries and what had come out about that in the about 2019 or so, and then we went right into COVID, and then what we saw were the pretty dip in numbers, and then it got steady back in 2022. We've seen incremental gain in 23. We started to see a bigger gain in 24, and now we're really starting to see people coming back in large numbers, and the numbers getting back to where they were. But again, it's so much of his education. I know you're so aware of that. I'm glad you have someone on your board that does that, because that is super, super important. And we want to make sure that we provide a safe environment for all to play the game.
You know, um, it's interesting, Steve. I think and you hear me enough. I don't really know many people that like football more than me, if anybody, to be honest with you. Uh, and I have Chris on every year, and he's a big proponent of not starting until you're 12, 13, 14, because he doesn't want any type of contact to the head when you're younger than that. I guess I'm curious. I'm sure you get asked that a lot by parents and coaches. What sort of your response to that thought process of not really starting tackle football until maybe you're in middle school or going to be close to high school?
Yeah, obviously we hear that once in a while, and we, in all respect to Chris, we disagree. We think it's incredibly important to be taught at the young age. Again, I mentioned it already a number of times. You've got to be taught right. You have to have where I would agree with him, and is that we absolutely have to have that structure in place. You need to have coaches that have gone through certification. The studies that have been done and are being done is to make this game as safe as we possibly can. You and I could talk forever about, the heads up tackling, everything that we've gone through. We emphasize all of that and keep a close eye on everything and really have seen success in, as opposed to waiting late, to teaching them correctly and teaching them early how you tackle, how you do this. Obviously, it ramps up as you go at, a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old. We are actually seeing a increase in the younger ages. We have our national championships down in Charlotte in December, and at those this year for the first time we're adding 8U. There was such a demand throughout the country for 8U, and we had started at 9U before. And so we are adding a division of 8U. It's probably one of our fastest growing groups, and we are really seeing that. Now, one thing, and I don't know your full opinion on flag, but we have embraced flag completely. So I think there is for those, parents and people that might not want to tackle at an early age. We certainly have been gone full into flag, and we've actually partnered with NFL Flag. I don't know if you saw that. We announced it about a month ago, where Pop Warner and NFL Flag are partnering, and so we'll be the only partner that the NFL has to really grow that game of flag. And again, people think it's at the lower ages. It is, but the high school levels, you've seen us certified now. I think it's up to 18 states that have got it. So again, that whole tackle flag and the transition and going back and forth has been really popular.
You kind of read my mind. I was going to ask you about flag football, and it wasn't really around when I was growing up. I think it's fantastic. I think it gets people to have the ball in their hands and run routes and cover. And listen, even if you're going to eventually be a lineman like me, it's nice that when you're younger to at least get the ball every once in a while. And honestly, that helps your athleticism so that if you are end up being a lineman, you're more agile, you're more athletic. So I'm happy to hear you guys are embracing that. What's interesting to me is I think a lot of places, at least maybe around here, flag is like spring and summer. So, you can play both. Like it's not in the fall. So there's nothing preventing you. A lot of kids play both, right?
Yep, yep. Kids play, but we actually had to change our bylaws this fall, or this summer. One of the first things I did when I got to Pop Warner, because there was such a demand. You're right, it is a lot more in the spring, but depending on what part of the country you're in, and that's what's really cool about Hawaii, about Pop Warner. I mean, we go all the way out to Hawaii, Alaska. We have teams all over. Is that it can be played at different times. And what's so cool about flag is 10 players. That's all you need. 10 players. And then you've got the girls teams, the co-eds teams. Girls flag is the fastest growing sport in the United States. And I know this is a football show, but Pop Warner is also known for cheerleading. We have hundreds of thousands of cheerleaders that go through cheer and dance. And we actually have one of the coolest stories we have is we have our flag tournament, our first ever in conjunction with NFL Flag, also during Super Bowl week in December in Charlotte. And on that flag tournament, one of the coolest things is we have a team that's entered, which is a girls cheerleading, Pop Warner cheerleading team out of Northern New York that is actually putting in 2 girls flag teams. So they're going to go in the cheerleading competition early in the week and then put 2 teams into the flag later in the week. So it's just flag is exploding. Quite honestly, there isn't, still isn't really like a Pop Warner tackle of flag. People play NFL flag, but they're not a governing body. So that's why we have joined with them, and we're looking to obviously take advantage and offer that. And again, as what Chris said, it's a perfect transition. We don't want kids playing tackle year round. You play tackle in one season, flag in the other season. It really, or again, we've had that demand where you've got tackle and flag both being played in the fall as well. So it's really just a great opportunity. Again, all we're trying to do is give these kids opportunity to play the game that we love in football and teach them right and give them that opportunity.
That's cool. It's interesting. My daughters are 12 and 13. So I'm kind of in this world. You know what I like about football, Steve, is that, and maybe it's a little bit different now with flag football, but football's never really tried to take over the whole year. I think I'm perturbed by the other sports that it just seems like they're so club based
Yep.
and that the club is the foundation of the sport. And so then, your club or your travel baseball or softball team or your club volleyball or club, lacrosse. And I'm not knocking them. It just, the year-round aspect of it is something that bothers me, and it really prevents. It seems like I know this isn't the goal, but it really does make it difficult for some kids that want to play more than one sport.
Yep. Couldn't couldn't agree more. Again, we are all about. I am personally all about. I did not play football. My kids didn't play football, but they played. It seemed like every soccer, baseball, track, every other sport, and I am all for playing. Although both of them did play flag football. But it is very. I think it is so important. And what's really also cool, Ross, is seeing, what I've learned is, we're up here in the Pennsylvania area, Philadelphia area, but, it's so different region to region. And Pop Warner's got 8 regions. So what I've learned is what happens down in the southeast, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, is a lot different than what happens out in what we call WestCon, which California, Arizona. So you see when we're talking about flag, so being a spring, it's very big in the spring here. It's and in the south, it's very big in the early spring, but then it gets really hot, So it just depends where you are. But I couldn't agree more that it's great to be able to give this opportunity, and you're not taken away from other sports. Again, this is something where I'm a big multi-sport athlete or a proponent and athlete of that nature. So I believe in that, and I think especially at the younger ages, it's great to have that, to have experience and exposure to multiple sports.
Do you have kids like certain areas? Do you have people like trying to stack teams and all-star teams that they can be the one that goes to the Super Bowl? And I mean, I see it, with NIL and the transfer portal, it's really kind of normalized that. I see it at the high school level. I don't pay attention lower than that, but I see it at the high school level where, there's a lot of movement and kids transferring. It's kind of a mess at times. It really is. It bothers me just because we didn't grow up that way. But in particular, it becomes, I know the PIAA here in Pennsylvania tries to do what they can to try to keep it fair, but it feels like they're fighting an uphill battle. Do you have to deal with that? And is there any carryover from NIL and transfer portal to the 8-year-old all-star teams?
So we part of Pop Warner, and it's interesting, we have different views, but part of our structure, part of our bylaws, we do not have all-star teams purposely for the reason you're talking about. We're here, at these ages to grow and teach a sport and teach it the right way. So of course you're gonna have people that try to, work the system, but for we do everything and we have everything within our bylaws that, you can't, if you've got a Pop Warner team in one city and a Pop Warner team in the city next to you, you can't jump. You can't jump to the other city. You play within your boundaries, we call them. So you play within your boundaries. So that, of course, there's certain teams that put together some pretty darn good teams, but we really try to keep it as even play as possible. And do not allow those super teams and all-star teams. That being said, I've been in many conversations with the high schools and colleges and NFL, and what's great is the unbelievable support from the NFL. I mean, I had a one-on-one meeting with Commissioner Goodell a month ago, and he literally took the time because he realizes, and Troy Vincent, and who you know well, and I knew well, they realize the future is, Pop Warner and the youth of football. So we want to make sure that, again, back to exposure. But of course, NIL, as they get older, is coming in. I don't know if you saw the NFL flag tournament on ESPN about a month ago. Those kids were, half of them had NIL deals. So, certainly the better
For
kids
what? For which kid?
for NFL flag.
So the
That
flag football kids have NIL deals?
Yep, going now again, turning over to tackle as well. But I don't know. I can't remember his name, but the team that won, this kid from Jacksonville, has been offered 300 scholarships throughout the country as wide receiver. It's unbelievable. But again, yeah. So we keep an eye on it, and we're definitely we will adjust if needed. But we've right as of now, and as I'm concerned, we're continuing, and no all-star teams or any kind of things like that.
Right. It's obviously like if someone has like a falsified address, or if they say they're living with their uncle or their buddy,
Yeah.
that I mean, that's got to be hard for you guys at that level to try to legislate that.
Absolutely. I mean, we're talking hundreds of thousands of kids. So, again, we have these 8 regions, and each region has a management team that, we do our best on that. And I think, for the most part, do a good job. It's just obviously, like you said, people are always going to try to unfortunately go around the system, but I think, we have some pretty good structure in place.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like if you're trying to do that to have a better 8 or 9 year old team, like man, you're really missing what this is supposed to be about. I mean, you're
Yeah.
really, really missing it.
I agree. And again, we celebrate our coaches, we celebrate our kids. We just started another thing with the NFL, Pop Warner Youth Coach of the Week. So, week one, the Panthers celebrated one of our coaches in their region. Next week, the Patriots are doing it. So again, we're just trying to just build awareness, and that's why I appreciate so much being on with you today, because we want you to, get it right. You can play youth football in different areas. We don't have anything bad to say about them, but we believe that the structure is and the safety is what the parents want, what the kids want, and it'll lead to our better kids in the future.
Steve, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. Really appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks, Ross. I hope to talk to you again soon.
Tux Takes.
The Chicago Bears went into Philadelphia and got one of the biggest wins for that franchise in a long, long time. I don't think there were many people out there that thought after that last Eagles loss that the Bears would go into Philadelphia and control the line of scrimmage the way they did, but they did. How about DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai going for almost 300 yards rushing, which is amazing as the Bears offensive line totally controlled the action. And then Caleb Williams probably wasn't great, but had a nice touchdown pass to Cole Kmet. For the Eagles, their offense was out of sorts almost the entire game. The only thing they really got going was Jalen Hurts to A.J. Brown a few times. The Eagles had a couple of costly missed kicks. They had a couple of costly turnovers, but ultimately the team that was better up front won the game like it normally is in football, and that team was the Chicago Bears. That was awesome. That was exactly what I was looking for. I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation. If you ever have any ideas for people for Saturday sit-downs, let me know. Hit me up with an email, ross@rosstucker.com. You can certainly always hit me up on social media. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL. We are at Ross Tucker Pod. I get actually a chance to just be with my family today and watch college football. And Sunday, I'll just be home watching the NFL games because I already had my game between Nebraska as well as Iowa. Other than that, We'll be back bright and early Monday morning. You can always check us out, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your holiday weekend and trust that you will. I think we're done here.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also check out Even Money, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network on Samsung TV Plus, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
Shout out myfrontpagestory.com, of course. I know a lot of you are shopping this weekend. Just shop at myfrontpagestory.com. Backofficescheduler.com, humanheadnyc.com, Sporticulture, Pizza Boy Brewing.